secure one. Okay, so what I'll do over here is in my service.cds file over here, as I do have one annotation called @impl. Same way, I do have one more, I can say, annotation called requires. And here you can say authenticated user. The moment you say your service requires an authenticated user, it won't allow anyone but the authenticated user to create the entry or view the data. So for example, I am saying get the data. What it is saying? It is saying you are not authorized, because for a person to be authorized, he should prove his identity. He should prove his identity. Of course, I know I am a person and let's just say I'm part of an organization. But one day, if I'm straightly walking in my organization, will they allow me? Until and unless I don't have a valid ID proof which they have provided, I won't be able to swipe in. I won't be able to enter in my organizations. I would be stop at the door itself. Same way, for a person, his name is his identity, but still, in the context of the world, we need a unique identity, and that unique identity is getting authorized using something called UAA. I can say user account and authentication. It's called authorization and authentication, either of them. So your user account, and you should have a proper authorization to that. So here we used to have Capire. For us to have any sort of UAA, implemented, okay, we would need few things. We should say, it's not the one which I'm looking for. There is one more thing. These are the thing how you can create it manually. Okay, you can generate a UAS service and everything, but there is also one of the way using which you can generate this access security, and everything would get generated out of the box. There is one. Okay, 1 second. Yeah. So we do have few things. When we want to add any sort of authorization, there are few steps that we have to perform. First step we already performed. We say that we don't want anyone but the authorized user only to use my service. That's what we did. Perfect. And that's why even we are not able to, even though I generated the service, I am not able to call it. It seems okay. Now I'll just say, if I just see CDS watch, till what point I'll be able to jump in. Okay, so if I just open this, it would open this service. I'll be able to go till now. If I just click on this, it would pop up with a authentication pop-up saying you have to authorize. And if I just say sumit.aoh@gmail.com and my password, it would authenticate me and it would allow me to load the data. So if you see, we just added one annotation, requires authenticated user, and it started with the authorization. Now, as the browser-based trace client is not that versatile, it's not giving that pop-up. It won't allow me to enter my credential. Until the time I don't enter my credential, I won't be authorized. Now here I am authorized, and here I'll be able to perform any operation I want. So if I want to get the data, I would be able to. If I want to create the data, I would be able to. Okay, we would be creating the data and we would be seeing that now the created by and modified by won't be anonymous, but it would be my user ID going forward. But how to have that facility? This is a local version where we just added this, and the local service client is allowing us to have the user's input. But in case we want that to be global, what we want a UAS service. When I say I want a separate service for my application to work, where it should be? It should be part of my service dependency. So in the modules, if you see, I do have just a resource, correct? I do have a database and I do have the service pack, but I don't have anything which clearly says that I do have to authorize. I do have to authenticate before logging into. Okay, so let's just first fine tune this particular MTA, and then maybe we would be adding the remaining component that we would need. So for example, I am saying HDI. Are we naming it as a BTP EMP local handlers? So I can say this. I'll just rename this component and rename this component because I just rename it in the resource. So if we rename the resource, we have to rename this particular component as well. I can say BTP BE EMP local because I'm following certain naming convention. That's the only thing. And this is my database. So I can say BTP DB. So I do have DB module and BE module, which is working. I do have a database container, which is also responsible for storing and retrieving all the data. Now, for me to authenticate, I would need two things. I would need a UAS service, as I mentioned, plus I would need a app router. Why would I need a app router? For example, I have a service which is running over here and which is very secure. Okay, it is very secure and it would need a authentication token. I can say OAuth2 SAML assertion. So this sort of authentication token it needs. But then also we would require some sort of generator that would generate that authentication token, right? And for us to generate the authentication token, we do have a app router. This would be my app router. What would be the purpose of app router? So purpose of app router is to authenticate a user, generate the auth token, authorization token, call the backend service, actual one, and pass the auth token at the same time. So what it would do is whenever a backend service of the app router is getting triggered, it would authenticate the user. How it can authenticate? It would give you the pop-up. In case we are going with a basic authentication, in case we do have a single sign-on somewhere, it would take the authentication token from the browser cache or the user UAA service wherever it is bind to. The authentication token, once it is bind, this app router would be connected to this SML to this actual backend service. It would pass this authentication token, and then actual backend service would get executed. So all your logic would be part of your SRV only. This is your actual backend service. But we would have a app router whose purpose is just to route. Whose purpose is just to route the request from here to here. Okay. So for generating that app router and for generating that, if you see, I'm always going with the standard token standard steps only. There is nothing which ultimately I am kind of just seeing somewhere and writing it out. It's just the standard documentation. In case you want something which is being introduced newly into the SAP, always follow the CAPI document for CAP. So we already added SAP HANA database. We did that CDS add HANA. Perfect. Now I want to add the access UAA. I want to add the SAP authorization over here. What I have to do? I'll just say CDS add access UAA for production. When I say for production, it's not the environment. It's the real. So there are two things. One is local execution. One is the execution using the deployed service. That deployed service is called productive service. And that productive service means production. It's not a production environment. It's a productive service which would be used directly and not using the business application studio. It's not a local execution. So what it would do is this will auto generate your access security JSON with the roles and the scope, and it would generate the UAA service as well. So we have to add this. So I can say CDS add access UAA. I'll just go over here and just say enter. So it just added the feature access UAA. What it did internally, it just generated the access security file. So here it's a basic simple template. So many a time we do have a admin role, whenever time many a time we do have a read only role, all those kind of role templates that we want to maintain, this access security file can be used. Another thing, it just internally generated one more resource. If you see, it just generated BTP, BE local, EMP local, UAA. This is a file. What is the type of the service? It is access UAA. So these I can say X. It's called HANA Advanced Cockpit. Access Cockpit. It means HANA Advanced Cockpit as a user access authentication file. That's what it generated, and it's getting all its information from here. On top of that, it would also have done something in the package.json. If you see, it added one more thing called passport. So this passport is also something which would give the token. So this is responsible for your token generation, and this is responsible for your access security. The moment you add that single command, it would add both of these things. And it also add the UAA kind access UAA. This is something we did not add it. Using that single command, it just got appended. Okay. So all these things just got generated. Now, after having this particular component available in my project, I would need something which can generate this UAA kind of authentication token that is required. And for that, we have to go with this app router. To add the app router, I'll just say CDS app add app router for production. Copy this, paste it over here. Okay. And now when I say I added something, it just say added app router over here. If you just go over here in the app folder, earlier we found that okay, we do have 3 folders, DB, SRV, app, but we never use that. If you open this, this is the app router. That is why it is called app. Okay, it has its own set of access, app.json and everything. Now, if I just say what it is doing, if I just go in my MTA YML, it just added the resource were there. It just added one more module. If you see, I renamed this to DB, I renamed this to BE, and now I do have one more module. This is of type app router Node.js. So for my naming convention, I'll always prefer AR, just to signify that this is an app router. Okay. This app router, what it is doing? This app router internally requires your SRV-API, and where that SRV-API is coming from. If you see, this Node.js service is providing this SRV API. So this is my actual backend. It is having a connector SRV.API, which is responsible for all the consumers of CAP service. If you see, it is that's a standard documentation required by consumer of CAP service. For example, app router. So this SRV API, which is provided by the backend, is required for the app router to work, and this app router would pass the authentication token. If you see forward auth token equal to true, whatever authentication that has been generated would be passed on to the SRV.API. So who is responsible for generating auth token? This, and it would be passed on to this SRV.API, and then that is how it would get authenticated. Now, here access app.json. So this is my actual structure of the routes, that if I am saying that whatever request I am getting on app router, it would be passed on. But how? Let's just say one of my services running on 1234, which is my app router, and my backend service is running on 2345. And here I am getting app router slash employee. What it would do is this app router would be something dot colon 1234 port number slash employee. So it would authenticate only this, then whatever request is there afterwards slash employee, it would be forwarded to this backend. If you see, it says any sort of source, dot, star, or anything. These are kind of a, I can say, pattern, that anything that you are getting, finally it should be navigated to the destination SRV-API. This SRV-API is nothing but your this backend service. This is your destination. That's where it should be routed to. Okay. Along with this, there is also one more thing that we should be knowing, but I'll just tell you over here. So we do have, I can say, we do have one more thing called CSRF protection. Okay, so there is a very common term called CSRF protection. What it is? So whenever, so it's a called cross-site request forgery. So whenever I do have one particular service, okay, for example, this app router, that is one site. I do have another site which is a backend service which is getting triggered. Even though it is authenticated over here, the second service, if it is the CSRF protection is not disabled, I won't be able to perform any sort of data manipulation. It means if I do have CSRF protection on, I mean true, then I won't be able to perform any sort of create, update, delete operation on my backend. Instead, it would only allow me to get the data. And for that, explicitly, you have to mention CSRF protection equal to false. I mean, this is something I had learned from experience. If we deploy this, try getting, it would give you the data, but the moment to try creating anything, it would fail. So what I'll do is I'll just say CSRF protection. I'll just say false. So this is how far, or let's just say this is how far we went, and this is how long, what all changes that you should be doing. Okay. Now we want to deploy this service to see the expectation that we do have, that it would authenticate and give only the required user access, and will it would created by an changed by name also internally. Will it do that or not? Okay, so what we will do is I'll just try to deploy this. So I do have MTA YML over here. I do have a 1.0.0. So this is a kind of a empty archive I'm expecting to generate. Now one more thing. In the app.json, we do have package.json. It does have certain dependencies, which is newly generated. It means we need some sort of dependent node modules also to get generated. For that, what you have to do is you have to say npm install. It would check all the dependencies, whatever are required, and it would try to install those. If you see, it just found certain package for which it just installed the dependencies. Now I'll just say right click over here and build the MTA project. And now this build would generate an empty archive as usual that it used to do earlier. Upon deployment, earlier it used to generate only two services, one DB and one backend. Now it would generate three, DB, app router, and backend. And what should be handed over for the use? It should be app router because backend service is secured. How we did that? Using an annotation called requires authenticated user. So till the time user is not authenticated, he won't be able to use any service. So does this storyline make some sense? Is it clear? So we would be deploying and we would be seeing in live, I guess, I mean, in few minutes once it's deployed, but are we all clear till now? Because in real production, or let's just say in real service, any service which is not having authentication won't be passed for a production usage because no one would be able to identify who is the user who is doing all this change. It would always say anonymous. So I do have BTP B employee local 1.0.0. Now I'll just go over here and I'll just say right click, deploy this empty archive. And it would start deploying this. Why we do have a pin drop silence? Is it like very much confusing or clear?
No,
Little bit.
confused because we haven't worked it till now on Node.js, right? So
Yeah, for
if
sure.
you used to
That's
do
what
these
we need
things, then
to.
only we can.
Definitely. And I'll request all of you because it's a trial account. It's totally free of cost. Okay. Just create your own. Try to create and add all these components. That is why I am not going through anything which is not available over here. I am just going through the standard document. Always go through that. Follow what the standard document is saying. Do that and you would be able to achieve that.
Okay, fine, Sumit.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, Smith. We will practice and think
Yeah.
because if you are not doing hands-on, then it will be not clear.
Definitely. And yeah, I
Mm.
mean, next what we are going to do is we are trying
Mm.
to integrate. So these where we were internally doing everything. So we generated UA and everything. Now we are going to generate a media entity which is responsible for file storage. Now for that, we are going to connect third party applications. So we are going one more step beyond. So it would be good if you can practice whatever we have covered till now. So it would be good for you to grasp the upcoming things.
Yeah.
And it's totally different from the ABAP environment that we used to work in, where we do used to have a syntax check, activate, and it used to work like it used to start working in a blink. And
Yes,
here
means
that's not the
everything is
thing.
different. It's
So I have been through that phase, so I know. Somesh sir, are we good?
Yes, yes, Sumit.
Okay, so if you see, it just generated the app router. So this is where my app router is running. It says dev BTP AR something. Now this processing is not finished till the time we don't get the message process finished. Once we get that, then only we would be ready to go. So now backend service is started. It's just starting the application. So seems backend service is up and running. Now I guess it should clear the cache and do the everything. And I guess then we can start. So the process is finished. Okay, perfect. Now be with me. We are going to learn something maybe that I doubt maybe we all would have tried. But yeah, if we would have, then maybe definitely it would help. But yeah, let's just start with something. So what we can expect now, we can expect three services to be available. One database, one backend, one app router. So I'll just open the BTP cockpit. That's what we are. That's where we are. Okay, and now we want to check the applications. Can you see we do have three service? Okay, let's just say EMP local. Let's just filter it out. Yeah. So we do have backend, app router, and DB. All the three service running. I want to check the app router, for example. If you see, app router's purpose is not to have anything running. It's just for routing, and that's why system would always assign low memory to that. It's just 256 MB. The rest everything are getting 1 GB. Okay, I'll just click on this. So I got this particular application. So this is the URL which I'll be starting with. Next thing is, if you just go over here in the service binding, can you see the UAA service that is available over here that is responsible for the authentication? And if you show the sensitive data, it would say that you do have a service which would validate. Okay, so there is XSAP NAP, and this it is having a some sort of credential, instance credential. So there are multiple verifications. So I guess in the college days we used to learn some sort of networking concept where we used to have some sort of public key and the private key concept. So public key is something which is distributed to the public. Like I do have a BTP account, so this is my public key. If I pass this public key, then the private account, private UAA service would be able to authenticate that. And that is why it is called a public key, which would be responsible for verification that, yeah, this is a valid user and I would allow him to use that. Okay, so this is how the UAA service works. If I just go over here and try to open this AR, I'll just click on this. As you can see, it is going on to the login internally. And now once the login was successful, it navigated me to over here because I do have a session which is already available and that's why it allowed me. But in case I am starting fresh, then it won't allow me directly to access the service. Now I'm able to use this. If I just copy this employee over here, I can see I don't have anything over here. Let's also open one more thing that would help you understand few more things better. I'll just go on to my database to see, because on database we do have a few fields for the creation log and everything. I'll just open the HANA Database Explorer. So we do have this employee. Perfect. Now what I'll do is I'll just open one more thing that we would need for this, a postman. Right, because for us to taste the REST calls, we would need a postman. So that's what I'm just opening over here. Does it? Yeah, the Database Explorer is also getting open. So we want to do some sort of testing, like whether as expectation, is it getting the correct user ID or it is still showing the anonymous? That's what we want to look over here. Okay, so we want to have that container also available over here. So these are all the things that we did in the earlier session, the console and everything that we already tried out, right? And if you, I mean, by any chance you did not get a chance to attend the session, go through the recording. They are available and maybe you would have access to all of them. Okay. Now we want employee local. What is the name? HDI BTP EMP local. Just open this. What we can see over here is we do have a table called employee local DB. I'll open this. So currently I don't have anything, but here I can expect the data to come. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'll just go over here. Yeah, in case service is failing, then also we would be able to gather the log. Okay. I'll just say okay. Yeah. So I'll just say I do have an employee information over here. I'll just go one more step back. This is my app router metadata. And now I want this metadata to be available in Postman because I want to generate a post call. I'll just go over here. I'll just enter the URL. I'll just send. Can you see? Did it loaded the metadata? No. It says 200, but internally it would fail. Okay, because the system is not able to recognize. You are trying to execute it from the different environment. And there is a callback. If you see, whenever you are calling this, it's always good to understand what is going inside. Okay. So we do have an employee call, which I am making. And here internally, it is trying to reach out to the location. The same URL is there. And it is trying to reach out to /auth/authorize response type is a code. Code, it means authentication code with the client ID and everything. And it's a callback. This URL is trying to authenticate. But the thing is, as we don't have the I can say browser, it won't be able to. So what we would need is, let's just try to use the same session that we are having over here. I'll just say right click, inspect. This is how you would be able to do it, do the local testing using Postman. Okay, just for your knowledge, I'm just sharing this. I'll just say refresh. Can you see the cookie? So this cookie is responsible for the authentication. So if I just copy this from here, and here in the headers, I'll just add one more thing called cookie. Can you see this? Add this particular token. Okay, and just a send. Can you see the metadata just got loaded? It means we do have the metadata available now. Okay, so we do have the metadata available now, and it would help us get everything and so get all the services. Okay, so now we don't need the browser. We can go over here. So I can say I want all the employees data. Would you give it to me? I'll just say send. And it says you don't have any sort of data available till now. I'll say fine. I want one more thing. I want to generate a post call. When I say I want to generate a post call, I'll just go over here and I'll just say the row format. I want some sort of JSON format data. And here, whatever testing that we were doing in the local client, we would be doing it over here. Where are we? Over here. What we used to say, what was the name of the property? That's all I am looking for, just to avoid the typo. We were saying name. Sorry, my bad. I can say name over here. Okay, and I can say Sumit. And here in the headers, can you see the content type application.json or got added automatically? Now I'll just say send. There is a post call. I'll just say send. Yeah, one more thing to learn. It just say registered endpoint failed to handle the request. Perfect. Because we would have got some sort of error. So if I just go over here and if I just say applications, I am saying employee local. I'll just go in my backend because backend is my actual service provider. Can you see this? What it is saying? It is saying the type error can't read property of null. Okay. So there are few things which I'll do intentionally because I just want to learn. I mean, because if I do write few things directly, then it won't make any sense for you to also learn. So in case you are facing a challenge like this, that you wrote a code, but due to some reason it just failed. What you can do is your app router is just a way. It's just a routing. You are executing anything on the backend. So you have to go in your backend, check the logs. In the logs, you are finding that there is an internal error that just got occurred. Where actually it occurred? So there it's saying can't read property of split. If you just click on this, it says employee handler line number 30 just got failed. Perfect. It just say employee this just got failed. And why it would have failed? Because we might have done some sort of issue.
Split command we have used, right?
Sorry. Yeah, we have used the split command. Yeah, but what yeah, that is something I did that intentionally. I just wanted to show you something. So this LR read is an array. Whenever you are getting, it's an array. Whenever you are saying maximum, it would give you the data with a 0 line. It won't be a null and it won't be undefined. Okay, and as it is having the, I can say a valid LR read, this is not undefined. It is going inside this, but do we have anything? We don't have the maximum ID. It's an empty array. So we don't have a 0th position. And that is why it is giving undefined over here and undefined dot split is undefined. And that is why it is failing. It is raising an exception. Okay, let me prove that. If we do have at least single record, then it won't fail. How we can try that out? We should have one more condition over here. Ideally, we should have one more condition which says lr_read.length is not equal to 0. This is something we would need. But yeah, I have not deployed that. Let's just help you understand one more way with the help of which we can do that. So we were over here tables. I'll just say over here, generate an insert statement. Can you see it is asking me for the ID? ID, I'll just say generate GUID online because I want a unique ID. So I'm just using this. You can also try out anything. So application delivery without unit testing, that's anyway we don't want, right? So yeah, one more thing. We learned SQL console last time, but in case you want to also try it out, current at is what timestamp as mentioned. So how you can get that? You can say current timestamp. Now we do have a created by. So this is total SQL script. So if you want, you can pass anything. So for example, I am passing dummy for now because we just want to recognize what the system is doing. And if you want to make something blank, you can also do that. That's also not an issue. Can make this dummy. Employee front-end ID, I want to make EI_01. And name, for example, I want to give dummy. The moment you say insert, execute. What did I miss? Incorrect syntax near line number 3. Where is line number 3? Okay, there are 2 comma. Execute. It just inserted one record. If I just go over here, it would say perfect. It's working. I do have one record. Now if I just go over here and I just say send. Can you see? It just created another record. EI.02. If I just refresh it, second record just got generated with a created by Sumit.aoh, and I inserted the name Sumit in the body parameter. That's why I'm getting it over here. Okay, so 2 things we learned. Authentication. So I guess we learned few more things that we were not knowing earlier. The custom handlers, the authentication. And in case your service fails, we need a backup. How I can analyze the logs? What is the way? Go to BTP, check the backend respective backend service, check the logs. In the log, this service, all the service has an auto healing mode. Okay. So the moment you go over here, if you try to search for top 3 record, you won't find anything because service ideally auto heals. Whenever it fails, it just restart itself. And that's why those log would also be there of restarting. But instead, if you just scroll down, you would find certain error if it would have occurred. And here you would find a proper call stack that what call did made that. So I can see post call of this employee, this log just got created afterward, a promise, all this. And ultimately it is failing because that application server module.export general over here, line number 30 is having something which cannot get executed.